Sandra, a 65-year-old woman, resided with her husband Floyd. On a typical day, they were strolling down the street after a swift trip to the grocery store when she noticed a young boy, looking lost and distressed, all by himself. It became evident to her that the boy had become separated from his caregivers as he was tearfully wandering with no adults nearby. Without hesitation, she took it upon herself to approach the little boy and offer her assistance. "Are you okay, sweetheart? Where's your mom?" Sandra asked. The boy, who looked to be about 4 years old, simply shook his head. "She was crying and said goodbye, son," the boy replied. Sandra realized the boy had been abandoned and decided to take him home while she called the police. "I know you're scared, sweetheart, but everything will be all right. I'm Sandra, and I'm going to help you, okay?" The boy nodded and slowly started warming up to her. She told him they waited home, and she would call people who could help him. Once they got to her house, she prepared a sandwich and juice for the boy, who introduced himself as John. She then called the police and explained the whole ordeal. After a couple of minutes, police arrived at their doorstep. John hid behind Sandra, who did all the talking. "I found this note in his pocket," she said, handing it over to the police. The note read, "I can no longer provide for my child. He is better off without me. I am sorry, John. While we search for his mother, we would have to send him to an orphanage," they said. "Orphanage? No. My mommy said that's where kids go if they don't behave properly," he cried. Sandra was opposed to this idea as well. "I'm willing to become his foster parent until we find his mother. If we don't, then I'll take all necessary steps to adopt him legally," Sandra declared. Sandra raised John alongside her husband Floyd, the same way they raised their children years back. Their children had all moved out and were in different states with their own families. Although they lived modestly, John was grateful that he had loving parents who cared for him and provided him with all the necessities. They would visit the park on weekends, play on the field together, and have fun picnics as a family. On weekdays, Sandra and Floyd would also help John out with his homework and spend dinner time talking to one another. Despite this, John would still think about his birth mother and wonder where she is. He envied other children who were in the arms of their loving parents while he was abandoned at such a young age. 13 years later, when John was 17, something happened. His birth mother suddenly came to their house. Dressed in crisp designer clothes, she got out of a large bulletproof SUV that John had only seen in movies. She introduced herself as John's mother, Angela, and both Sandra and Floyd were stunned. "I've been working hard for the past 10 years, hoping to live a better life than I did before. I have enough money now, and I can support my son. I just got married to a millionaire, and we're both ready to take my son back," she explained. Upon hearing this, John's mind brimmed with numerous thoughts. If he stayed with his wealthy mother, he'd have all the opulent things he had only admired from his classmates, the latest gadgets, fashionable clothes, and desirable shoes. Sandra gazed at John, offering a warm smile. "It's your decision, my dear," she said, her voice quivering as tears welled in her eyes. Despite her profound love for John, she understood she had no right to keep him from his mother if that's what he truly desired. With determination, John approached Angela and spoke, "I want to be with you. You're my mom, and children should grow up with their moms who love and protect them." His heartfelt words touched his birth mom's heart deeply. "But how can I trust someone who left me on the street, hoping someone would just pick me up and take me to safety? I was left on the street like a stray dog," John proceeded to say with his voice shaking. "No, I refuse to go with you. I know what it feels to be loved by a mother, and it's not because of you. I will stay with the person who saved me, accepted me, and raised me to be who I am today," he said, walking over to Sandra and giving her a big hug. Heartbroken, Angela left but returned the next day with a generous check, offering all she had in her name to John as an apology for leaving him on the street. She urged him to use it to build a better future. John accepted the check, but chose not to use the money. Some days later, Angela returned, revealing that her husband had filed for divorce upon discovering her act of kindness towards John. "I have no place to go," she cried. "I've been begging on the street, but I feel I have no place here. I will move to another city and find a life there. I just wanted to see you one last time," she explained. John looked at Sandra, and Sandra gave him an approving nod. "Now you know how it feels to be left on the street with nothing. You did the same to me," he told her. "But I was not raised to become a selfish child. My mom taught me to help those in need, so I'm extending a helping hand to you," John said, opening their home's door a little wider. "You can stay here with us for the meantime," Sandra chimed in. After settling in, Angela secured a job at a local restaurant, working hard to earn money for herself. With sufficient savings, she rented an apartment nearby and maintained a close connection with John and Sandra. Meanwhile, John couldn't bring himself to use the money his mother gave him. Instead, he donated the entire sum to a fund that assisted abandoned children. John continued to live with Sandra and Floyd, focusing on his studies to secure a good job and repay their kindness. He delighted in treating them to fine dining and special trips whenever possible. Furthermore, he imparted the same values they instilled in him to his own children. Ultimately, John forgave Angela. While they never became as intimate as he was with Sandra and Floyd, he made sure she lived comfortably and remained distantly cordial with her.